Yeah, so when I was a kid, I grew up in Hawaii, which is everything's outdoors. My parents were both really they worked really hard at teaching us different aspects. Like my mom and my dad had a deal where my mom would take care of the schoolwork and then my dad would take care of the other education outside of school. So every weekend we'd go outside, we'd go to the beach, we'd be playing in trees, climbing. We were outside a lot. And in terms of like writing and drawing, I was always drawing. I drew a lot of dogs. I still do, but nothing's been published with that yet. And I used to like writing poems and stuff when I was a kid. And they were about flowers too, so I mean, I've kind of just stuck outside really. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't very sporty, but I kind of like to just sit outside and yeah. So I went to university to do illustration because I wanted to do picture books. But I didn't feel very confident that I would be writing it. I never really thought that would happen. It's not that I didn't have ideas. I just didn't think that for some reason, I didn't think I had legitimacy in being able to write it. Like, oh, I studied art. Like, I don't have a degree in writing, or I don't know if it's worth it, or, oh, because I read a lot, but I didn't, in my head for a long time, it didn't translate that I could write myself. I got into writing kind of late, I guess, in life. It was in university, at least with story in mind. Essays and stuff, I've done loads, but and it usually kind of came forth from drawing like characters. When you're a kid, I think growing up, everyone kind of dissuades you from doing art as a career. Like, oh, you won't make money, or oh, it affected me because I always loved drawing and I didn't think anything of it. But up until pretty late in high school, I wanted to do like journalism, which actually is writing, but somehow I felt like, okay, I could do it if I take lessons to do it, But I had a really, really incredible art teacher, and I realized that it was just, I shouldn't push away what was natural to me, that I love drawing and it was something I enjoyed doing and it's something I really cared about. And when you're in high school or when you're in school, it's really hard to find something that really like speaks out to you, and sometimes it makes you feel like, oh, I'm not doing something, like I'm not doing it right. But yeah, that was drawing for me, and I did a book. It was like a book contest in like my school, and it was it was a really dorky project, but I really loved it. And I mean, when I'd go to the library with my mom, I was still always in the children's book section looking at things up until I was far too old. And I at that point, I didn't even have context. I wasn't researching to do books. It was where I wanted to be, I guess. So I've written 2 books, and I'm kind of in the process of writing more. I mean, we'll see. So Wild was my first book, and I did that right out of university. I think that came out in 2013. And that one, was really lucky how it did pretty well, and it's distributed everywhere. And then the next book I did was The Little Gardener, and that was with the same publishers, Flying Eye Books. And that one's about like a little gardener, literally, just kind of having like this crisis of wondering like if anything he does has any meaning to it, because it doesn't seem like he's being successful, but I mean, you have to read the book to see if he is. And I've done some illustration for other ones as well. A lot of bears, dogs, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I guess I'm really influenced by my family. And someone told me this interesting quote from like Maurice Sendak, where a lot of the children's illustrators he knew, or children's bookmakers, have really good memory of their childhoods, and not everybody has that, which I thought was interesting, because I remember, I don't know, maybe I'm glamorizing parts of it, I'm exaggerating, I don't know, but I remember a lot of mine. And with Wild and also The Little Gardener, my dad died a few weeks before I actually got commissioned to do Wild. And so that was kind of like a process of, like, making it was kind of therapeutic because I was also in mourning. So a lot of kind of ideas kind of came together while I was working on it. Like, I guess because my dad was mentally ill, so at points he was kind of not socially acceptable, which was a hard thing, but it was a good, I mean, it was a good thing when you're a kid too, because you get to see how people can treat others so differently based on like what they think is acceptable. And yeah, so it's kind of a story about acceptance and love. And, you know, if you really love somebody, you have to accept them at any kind of stage they're at, even if, yeah. So a lot of it kind of shone through with Wild. It was a good time to be making that book. So the first time I saw my book in a bookstore, I'm trying to remember which store it was at. It was, I think I might have seen it in a shop window, actually, and it was very surreal. It was really weird. I had like this feeling where it was like somehow that it was out in the open in like this weird space and not in the actual shelf made it seem less real to me. Like it seemed like it was still kind of like, oh, here's this new book, and then they might chuck it out at the end or something. Like it still was really weird. I think the feeling of being like really like, whoa, like I've done it, kind of came more when I saw it at the library. And my mom, like I saw it at like the public library. My mom sent me a picture of it as well, where someone drew on the cover. And that was a really, really big deal to me. That's when it's like, oh, it's being used. I know kids are reading it. I know parents are reading it. They're already, you know, plagiarizing it. Like, that's when it became like an actual object, I think, in someone's life. That made me feel really excited. Yeah. I love doing books because it's really fun problem solving, where you can't really get anything wrong, totally. Because no one can really argue too much with the world that you've created if you really believe in it yourself. So what makes me really excited when making books is when I have an idea, or when I draw a character and I find them to be like alive or have more personality. Because I draw all the time, but sometimes I draw something and I'm like, oh, there's something to it. There's something. And then when I create the stories, it's usually to put the character in a situation that's really difficult for this character in general. And the thing I find hardest is resolve. So when I can get to a point where I figured it out, or I figured out how this character can triumph in any way, that makes me really excited. Yeah.